people take energy from us, people take time from us, and people subtly take money from us all the time. All the time. And so there's a little bit that we become blind to, I think, as part of it. And like I said, money is a little less obvious, but the time and the energy is one that's very, very subtle. And so it's not because people are stupid, but it's often because we assume the problem is us.
Are you feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or uncertain about how to grow your business without sacrificing what really matters most? Welcome to The Business You Really Want, the show for women ready to build a sustainable, fully aligned business. Aligned with what, you ask? You, your values, your life. Seriously, it is possible. I'm Tanya Kubo, and along with business advisor extraordinaire Gwen Bortner, we're here to show you how. What if I told you the biggest business threat isn't your competition, economic downturns, or even losing your biggest client? What if the thing slowly killing your business dreams is happening right under your nose, performed by people you trust in amounts so small you may barely even notice? Today, we are talking about the 3 types of theft that good employees, team members, contractors commit, and why by the time you actually see money disappearing from your account, you're already too late. So Gwen, this episode isn't actually about embezzlement. It's not about obvious theft. This is about what I like to call the death by 1,000 paper cuts that happens when team members, oftentimes team members who start off as good people with good intentions, slowly drain your business of its most vital resources. Now, Gwen, I want you to kick us off by telling us what are the 3 key thefts that you have witnessed in your time in business.
So it's energy, it's time, and then at some point it becomes money.
Okay. And so it's energy, it's time, it's money. They happen all at the same time, individually. Is there a specific order that you've seen it in? How does this manifest?
Money happens last. Money happens last, and only after the others have been going on for a long time, unless you have someone who is truly malicious. And we're working under the assumption that these people are not actually malicious. Okay? You know, someone who's malicious will go for the money right off the bat. That's the it's an easier thing, quite honestly. But they're still doing energy and time. And usually energy is first.
Okay.
Okay. Usually energy is first, then time, and then it becomes money. And the energy comes first because it's the hardest for us to track. Okay. Time is sort of easy for us to track, and money is the easiest for us to track. But we always start by energy drains from the business. And what I mean by energy drains is where people are taking more of your energy than is due for the situation.
Okay. So what you're saying is that while we as business owners are always trained to be like watching our bank account, we should really be paying attention to our energy levels when it comes to the people we work with?
I absolutely believe that, because that is a very, very early warning sign. If when I think about getting on a phone call with you, as you know, you're one of my trusted associates, and I'm always like, oh God, I really don't want to talk to Tanya. That means you're probably draining energy from me, right? And the question that you need to be asking is, so why are they draining energy? Are they draining energy because of your relationship? Because it's taking more energy to manage them than you think you should for this job? Is it taking energy because they are just energy vampires? There really are people who are kind of energy vampires for other people who may not be an energy vampire for somebody else. So that's also an interesting thing to note. Just because someone is an energy vampire for you doesn't mean they're an energy vampire for somebody else. It's what's taking that energy. Is it because I feel like I've explained the same things 15 times and I'm having to explain it again? Okay, that's energy. Now, it's also a bit of time, but mostly it's energy. Am I just like, oh, I'm so exhausted after talking with this person? Keeping in mind, we're talking about people taking money from your business. Energy vampires can also be customers.
Mm.
They don't necessarily have to be contractors or employees.
Okay.
Right? They may be paying you X to work for you, but they really should be paying twice as much because of how much energy they're taking from you. And so that's another form of theft by 1,000 paper cuts that no one's paying attention to.
So, okay. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about the energy theft. And I know we're going to talk, we're going to unpack each of these in their own episodes. So our next episode will be energy. The episode after that will be time. The episode after that will be money. I'm curious, though, from your perspective, why do you think business owners miss these thefts? Are they dumb? Is it dumb business owners only?
People are not dumb, but we don't always pay attention. And I think that's the piece, because people take energy from us, people take time from us, and people subtly take money from us all the time. All the time. And so there's a little bit that we become blind to, I think, as part of it. And like I said, money is a little less obvious, but the time and the energy is one that's very, very subtle. And so it's not because people are stupid, but it's often because we assume the problem is us. And so we blame ourselves. Well, it's my fault that when I get on a call with Tanya, I'm exhausted. Well, maybe it's not your fault. Maybe it's Tanya that's that's the
that
issue.
Tanya,
here.
gosh,
that Tanya, man. We know how we feel about that Tanya.
Well, what you're making me think about, right, is I'm just kind of going back in my own work history, both as an entrepreneur, but also as an employee, as a manager. And when I think about sort of some circumstances in my background, I think of, I can remember times where I thought, well, each incident was small and easy to explain, right? Like they had a hard day, so of course they needed to unload on me. Or, you know what, I was running behind, so I'm just a little bit shorter tempered than usual. This wouldn't typically get under my skin. It's just getting under my skin today. I think sometimes, especially that person who asks like a million questions about things that really don't matter, you kind of go, but they're trying really hard, right? That's why they ask so many questions, is they're trying really hard. And then also the people who are like, but they've been here so long.
Right. So
do you think there's other things that contribute, or go ahead?
No, I think there's all sorts of ways that I'll say, make excuses and take the ownership for the problem. Now, I also think that that's appropriate in the beginning. This is about pattern recognition. So is it happening a lot? And does it happen a lot with the same person? Okay, so now we're starting to see patterns. And then also the question is, does it happen a lot, but it happens with everybody? Well, maybe that is a you problem.
If you are the common denominator.
Maybe it is a you problem, right? So, I mean, both have to be considered. But if we see that I have no problem talking to anybody except Tanya. Okay, well, then that's probably that Tanya is a particular energy drain for me. Okay. If I'm having that with everybody, then that's probably something I need to look into, because back to I am the common denominator. So it is about pattern recognition, and we want to assume positive intent. At least I hope we do. Okay, that's really the place that we want to be in, is we want to assume positive intent. But there is a point that positive intent is no longer appropriate. And that is when there is a repeated pattern. Is this pattern repeating? Right? So is the pattern of the person unloading on you repeating? Now, it happens once a quarter. Okay, well, that's probably not that big of a pattern, and that's probably okay. Happening once a week, that might be an issue that needs to be discussed, because that's the 1,000 paper cuts. It's not so often that it's not happening every day, so it's not like an everyday problem. But every week is quite a bit. That's 52 times in a year. That's a lot. And so doesn't say, oh, but it's just 10 minutes today. Well, 10 minutes, 52 times, well, that's 520 minutes. And, we're now to losing a full day of productivity over the course of a year. And we say, well, it's only a day. Yeah, still, it's a day. It's a full day of productivity. This starts adding up. And of course, it's never just the 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, what I've heard you say about this, in other circumstances, is there tends to be some warning signs, right? There's some physical warning signs in terms of how you feel. There's productivity warning signs. And then sometimes there's, some financial indicators as well. What would you say are the physical warning signs that you've got, whether, because I think the physical stuff is really the time or the energy more than money.
Right.
What would be some warning signs of that? You've explained a few, but I think just having a nice list is helpful.
Well, so it really is about, do you feel like the amount of work is getting done in a period of time is appropriate for the amount of time that it's taking, right? We've recently seen a situation where someone was working part-time, but yet we're really not getting that amount of hours of work out of them, right? And so it's like, okay, yeah, I understand that you're working part-time, but I think I've given you 10 hours of work for 10 hours of time, but yet you're not actually getting all of the things done. And so then there's the question of well, so what are you doing? And are you showing up on time? Are you actually using the time the way that it's supposed to be used? Are there little sayings, indications, or behaviors that you're seeing? Back to pattern recognition is what we're looking for here. Pattern recognition over time. And they're always what I call yellow flags. So I've got my little hand up. Is because whenever I talk to my clients, ooh, yellow flag. That's a yellow flag. Yellow flag is we've seen this more than once. I see a pattern forming. Let's see if this is a pattern. If we continue to see it, then I call orange flag. Orange flag is pattern's pretty obvious. We need to really pay close attention and actually take some corrective action now and see what happens. And if, depending on what we see, then it's what I call red flag. And red flag is we need to take actual serious specific action. Of usually at this point, that's dismissal in in some form or fashion, depending on what kind of a relationship it is. Whether it's whether it's a customer or if it's a contractor or an employee. Right. So I look for the yellow flag, orange flag, red flag. And like I said, yellow flag is I've seen pattern recognition. I'm seeing a thing happening repeatedly, often enough that it feels problematic.
Yeah.
Right. Orange flag is, okay, now that I saw the yellow flag, I'm still seeing it again and again. That's the time that we want to be taking correction on activity. And or digging deeper into what's happening. Another client situation that happened some time ago was a client, really good employee, has been a good employee, just, nose to the grindstone, get things done, but was really showing up in she's not someone who would be a warm and friendly personality in the first place, but was showing up in a super, super harsh way. Well, we kept calling the yellow flag, and unfortunately, the client wasn't willing to do the orange flag until it got really, really, really bad. So it almost went to red flag. But once they had the conversation, they realized that, There were medical issues going on and medications that were being, taken and changed and whatnot.
Mhm.
And the employee didn't realize how much that was showing up out in the public,
Mm.
right? And as soon as she was made aware, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Let me please give me a week or two to fix it."
Mhm.
Right? Which she did, right? But this is the situation of if we let it go, we're actually doing a disservice both to ourselves and to the person that we need to be working with, because most people actually want to do a good job,
Yeah.
right? And if we let it go too long, what we actually start doing is one of my favorite phrases that I haven't used in a while is we're reinforcing bad behavior.
Mhm.
We're teaching them that whatever this behavior that we don't want to have happen is okay.
Yeah. Well, and what I've heard you say, because I've sat in on a couple of the executive retreats that you have facilitated, and I know one of them there was a lot of personnel stuff that had come up, and I heard you talk about, to the business owner that that they were experiencing some physical symptoms associated with this person that they hadn't even realized. And what you had pointed out was, it was clear that they were dreading their interactions. Like even the idea of having a performance conversation with the individual, you could tell was making the business owner sweat. They were talking about the amount of fatigue that they felt. Like they didn't even want to have team meetings because team meetings exhausted them so much.
Yep.
And just that sense of dread that was happening the night before having to go into the office to see the person. And then from a productivity standpoint, this is something that you and me have both experienced together. It's like there's a lot of activity, but no real progress because all the activity is around managing the individual, whether it's how they spend time, how they react to things, finding that you're having to spend so much time managing this one person that the rest of the team isn't getting the coaching that they need. And then sometimes you even find that the other team members start to complain because they notice too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Back to all of it really is pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to say, hey, this happens each time. What is that common denominator that is causing that thing to happen?
So there's something that, and I don't know if you remember this, but it wasn't too long ago that you said this, that you were talking to a client who was dealing with a type of theft. And you had pointed out that they were thinking about the theft all wrong. And you brought up a really important mindset shift that we all as business owners need to go through when we're focusing on this kind of theft. Do you remember what that was?
I absolutely do not. I mean, I think I know where you're going, but I do not remember what it was. So I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you go from there, and then I can add on my insights.
I'm just going to start it off with you have to switch from thinking they're doing this to me.
Ah, yes.
To
they're doing it for themselves.
All right, now you have to explain that because I don't think the average, especially when you're a small business owner, let's just be real, everything feels personal.
Well, because it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's our business. We own it. We care about it. We do all of these things. And so we often assume once we start seeing, theft of energy, theft of time, worse, theft of money, we assume that they're doing it to get at us. You did this to me, so I'm going to do this thing to you. I'm going to get even. I'm going to have revenge. It's all of those things. Almost always that is not true, at least not initially. At some point they can get there. But almost always, all of these types of theft, whether it's the energy theft, the time theft, or even the money theft, it is just what they think they need for them. It is what they deserve. It is what they have earned. It is what should be their right. Not because I'm going to get at you. Most of us spend very little time thinking about other people. We hate to admit that because it sounds extremely selfish, but it's absolutely true. Most everything we do is motivated by us, for us, not in getting to somebody else.
Okay. So, like, that makes sense, but why does it matter? Like, why does that mindset matter for me as the business owner as
Well,
long as
why
I get
that
to the
matters,
place?
yeah. So the reason it matters is what we talked about really, really early, which is it is not the excuses that you're making are making it about that you did something wrong, so you deserve this.
Hmm.
No, you don't. You don't deserve anything, even if you made a giant error in some way, shape, or form. You don't deserve anything, right? Now,
Mhm.
you may have consequences to things. That's a
Mhm.
whole different thing. But you don't deserve it unless you're actually doing something with malintent, which we're back to. We're not assuming that. We're assuming that most people are working under a positive intent, sort of mindset. And so just because you weren't right on top of your financial reconciliations doesn't mean you deserved to be stolen from.
Hmm.
That mindset is really important because otherwise then we say, oh, well, it's my fault and I shouldn't take any action on the person. No, you should take action on the person because they still stole money. Now, they may justify it to say, well, you didn't give me the raise that I deserved.
Mhm.
Well, first off, you probably didn't get the raise you deserved because, well, you didn't deserve it. And maybe you didn't get the raise you deserve because, oh, you're stealing money and the money's not, and therefore the business doesn't have any money in it to give you a raise. I mean, there's all sorts of things that could be going on
Mhm.
here, right? But we have to get out of the mindset that we deserved whatever negative activity happens, that it's our fault. Now, we may have a hand in it. I'm not
Mhm.
saying, back to if someone is an energy vampire for me, that's also partly me, but it doesn't mean like it's my fault. It just means, okay, I've got part of this. I have to make a choice about what I'm going to do about that, right? If someone is stealing time, if someone's taking way more time, like we've had this happen with a number of clients as well, where they have an employee who the work they're assigned to do should take 3 hours, and the person is taking 6 or 8 or 10 to do the work. Well, they're getting paid 6 or 8 or 10, but the owner is only getting paid for 3 from their client for that work to get done. That's stealing too. That's stealing time. Now, are they stealing time because they're incompetent? They can't actually do the work in the time frame? That's one thing. Are they stealing time because, well, I said I was at my computer for 3 hours. I was probably really only working on the project for an hour, but I was at my computer for 3 hours, so I'm going to bill for 3 hours? Well, okay, that really is stealing time, right? Because I'm not really doing the work. Or are we stealing time because I'm not following the processes? I'm doing it the way I like to do it, and my way happens to take 3 times as long, right? Now, whose fault is that? Well, it's their fault for not doing what they're doing. It is your fault for not holding them accountable.
Yeah, so you were talking about decisions. Like you kind of get to a place where you have to make some decisions. And I'm curious, because you've kind of walked through the, yellow, orange, red flags. At what point do you look at the behavior and say, okay, I'm going to coach this, right? I'm going to do some performance management, some coaching. And then what point do you cut? Because it just doesn't
So
make sense.
I actually feel like coaching should happen at yellow flag. I've
Mhm.
seen this issue and I'm going to coach it and truly coach it, which is to me, soft saying, hey, I've noticed this. I'm a little concerned about what that's implying. Can we talk about it? Let's pay attention to it. Orange flag to me is actually like a performance improvement plan, like a
Mm.
formal, we are paying attention to this. If you don't change, there will be action taken.
Mm-hmm.
And red flag is the action is being taken.
Okay.
Okay. But the thing is, I think most people don't want to coach at yellow. They try to coach at orange. They get to red, put in a performance improvement plan, which allows them to see that red, it was never going to change off of red, but now we've had that much more damage before we actually take action.
Mm-hmm.
So, the earlier we talked about where when we actually gave the employee a performance improvement plan, she made huge strides. They've been dealing with the issue for 6 months. If when at the yellow flag, they would have stopped and said, hey, we're really seeing a problem here, and I'd like to talk to you about it. Has something changed? There's something we need to be aware of. At that point, she could have said, oh my gosh, I've just got put on some different meds, and they said there were side effects. I didn't realize the side effects were actually showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pay attention to it. That would have saved 6 months of anguish, not only for the owner, who was spinning around in their head about it the entire time, but the rest of the staff that this person was working with.
I'm curious about coaching. Do you think that there is a resistance to coaching performance if there aren't clear systems in place to measure performance or improvement?
I think there's a resistance to coaching because we know we're not perfect either.
Mm.
And so we're saying, as soon as we start coaching, what we often assume is that, but we would do it right. And, we're the first to admit on this podcast, because we do it all the time, that yes, this is what we know we're supposed to do. Gosh, we were not doing it. It was not working because we're not perfect. And that as soon as we can let go of the fact that we don't have to be perfect to coach, I think we can get to the coaching space faster. Because I do think it's like, well, it's not my place to do this because I haven't been perfect about it. Back to, we take too much ownership of the issue and say, well, if I would have done A and B and C and D and E and F and G, then this couldn't have happened. Well, maybe not, but it doesn't matter because we haven't done A, B, C, D, E, F, and G where we are now. And if we're going to wait for that, that's waiting for a time that probably is never going to hit. And a lot of damage can be done in between here and there. I think the systems is an excuse. I don't think it's necessarily the problem.
Okay.
I think it's a great excuse because it feels very justifiable.
What about, so this is something else I've heard is, but it only affects X, right? It's only, it only affects me. Everybody else loves this person. The clients love them. The other team members love them. Or, it affects customer service, but as long as we fulfill appropriately, there's not a lot of customer service calls, so we don't have to really worry about it. What about the idea that it only affects maybe one narrow segment of the business versus all of it?
My issue with that is always you think it's only affecting X because that's you're only seeing X. But, and I don't remember who's the right person to get credit for it, but there's a phrase of the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Applies here. So you may be only seeing it here, right? But it actually is affecting more and more and more places, right? And by the time you find all of the other places is usually when we are nearer death and we are further away from just paper cuts. It's become really, really problematic. Very rarely do I find folks only behave a certain way in one very particular situation. It becomes very, very quick. And I use this phrase a lot. As soon as someone tells you who they are, listen. Because if they've told you in one category, they've actually told you in all the categories. And you may not be seeing in that category because of whatever the trigger point is for the behavior. right? That trigger point hasn't happened in the other categories, but it doesn't mean that it won't as soon as that trigger point is crossed, right? Sometimes it's busyness, sometimes it's confidence level, comfort level. There can be all sorts of things that are the trigger point for the behavior. And so maybe you're only seeing it here, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen here. It maybe just hasn't happened here yet. And so that really is where I think the piece of this becomes very, very challenging, and why the yellow flags really have to be acknowledged and paid attention to. Because the yellow flag is usually, it's only affecting one person. I'm the only one who's seeing this, right? I'm the only one who gets exhausted when I have conversations with them. Well, do you actually know? Probably everyone else is saying, oh, it's just me. I'm the only one who gets exhausted when I have conversations.
Right.
With this particular, so no one is saying it when actually, when the conversation comes out, and this happened to another client, gosh, this was years ago now, where it's like, yeah, I think it's only a problem, for me, because we're having that tension. It's only me. And literally it was a year of this before this person was let go. And when the person was let go, the entire rest of the team became so much more productive. So they lost a full-time staff member and didn't have to replace them for 9 months because the rest of the staff was so much more productive by this person not being there.
Wow.
But no one was really talking about that.
Right. Well, and because I do want
the particular thing was she would stir the pot.
Well, I was going to say, because you find that a lot of times when you have primarily like a really good team, and everybody is there to get the job done and they all have a shared purpose, and then you have like one troublemaker, you'll find that person stirs the pot quite a bit and nobody talks about it because everybody's focused on having their head down. I wanted to, before we end today, just talk about what makes this hard. You already talked about, there's that emotional pull because we want to think the best of people. We don't want to think this of people. But what else makes it hard?
I think the two big things that make it hard is Papercuts. It's tiny. And so we don't consider the tininess, how much that tininess adds up over time. I really think that's the number one issue. Is very rarely does someone blatantly, say, pay me for 40 hours and it's obvious they worked one. Like that's not how this starts. It starts by pay me for 40 hours. I took an extra half an hour off. It's a tiny bit. And they may have even told you about it. And you're like, oh, well, that's okay this time. And it grows over time. So it's that tininess, I think, is the first issue, is that it's so tiny. We don't actually give it credit for being a problem. And then I think the other issue is we want to assume that we should be able to fix it, that it's our problem, that if we were better at our job, if we were better leaders, if we were better managers, if we were better CEOs, if we were better, fill in any blank that you want to to put in there, this wouldn't happen. But, one of my phrases, I don't have this particular one in front of me, is people are problematic. It is the nature of being a people. All people, me people, you people, every people is a problematic person because we're independent. We have all of our own thoughts. We cannot be controlled in any sort of normal way. All of the control that really happens is self-control. And so we assume, when we start assuming that we could have done something better to fix it, that's assuming that we can actually change people, which we can't. Only people can change themselves if they're willing to.
Right. And kind of what you had said earlier is allowing these thefts, whether it's time, energy, money, allowing them to continue really hurts everybody in the organization, including the person who's doing it.
Right.
And that the clear boundaries, setting clear expectations like you described, holding people accountable to those expectations is what helps good employees or good team members thrive.
Well, and it's how they end up feeling successful in their own job. And occasionally the reality is it's a bad fit. They aren't going to be successful. They're not going to be successful with you as a contractor. They're not going to be successful with you as an employee. They're not going to be successful with you as a client. And that's okay. Not everybody is for every person, and not every job is for every person. Sometimes it's just not going to be a good fit, and that's okay. Go let them be a good fit someplace else.
Perfect way to end the episode. Thank you, Gwen. So we'll be talking in our next episode. I hope if you're still listening that you stick with us, because in our next episode, we'll talk about how to spot energy theft before it drains your business. And then coming up, we'll talk about the time thieves that hide in plain sight. And finally, in the series, when small theft becomes a big financial loss. If you are feeling right now, though, that your team is draining more than they're contributing, or you feel like you're working harder than ever, but seeing those profit margins shrink, you don't have to figure this out alone. Sometimes what you need is just someone outside the situation to help you see what's really happening. Look and identify those yellow flags, those orange flags, those red flags. And that is what our clarity calls are designed for. You can book a call directly with Gwen at everydayeffectiveness.com/clarity and just have a thought partner to really look at the situation. Is it just you? Or is this an objective problem? And whether you choose to work with us or not, you'll walk away with an idea about what's really necessary to get your business to where you want it to be and what patterns you have that may need changing. We will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to The Business You Really Want with Gwen Bortner. I'm Tanya Kubo, reminding you that sustainable success is within reach. Make sure to subscribe to the show and visit thebusinessyoureallyWant.com for more resources. Until next time, keep dreaming big and acting with intention.